Well, good morning or afternoon or evening, whenever you're watching this video. I think morning, afternoon, evening pretty much covers everything. But as many of you know, we are during this time of being quarantined and locked down with the coronavirus to prevent its spread. We have been, starting last week, we started putting out some video content, some devotional material, just a few minutes long, that you might use to spend some time meditating and reflecting on the good news of the gospel. And so that's what we're here to do today. And by the way, this is my Corona look, the unshaven face, but the shaved head done on Sunday afternoon, but trying to get a new trend started. Well, on Tuesdays, we said that we're going to spend some time in the book of Isaiah, and we're going to look at the suffering servant passages in Isaiah, and there are several of them. We introduced it last week, but this week we're getting into the first suffering servant passage, which is Isaiah 42. It's actually Isaiah 42 verses 1 through 4, but if you want to read through that passage, you might want to read a little bit further than that, maybe down to verse 9 of that passage, because I am going to mention one verse at least from those later verses. But now would be a good time to do that. Pause the video and then come back and we will talk about this passage. So in Isaiah, there's this mysterious suffering servant that appears in his prophecy, and by the time we get to the New Testament, we realize that that suffering servant is in fact Jesus himself. And so Isaiah 42, Jesus actually quotes Isaiah 42 verses 1 through 4 in its entirety, applying it to himself to say, I am the suffering servant that Isaiah was speaking of. And that very first verse is referenced at his baptism. You remember when Jesus is going before John in the Jordan River and he is baptized at the beginning of his public ministry, and his father appeared, and there was this voice that was heard saying, "This is my beloved son, with whom I am well pleased." And Jesus' father there, he was doting over his son, delighting in his son, enjoying his son. His son was the apple of his eye. His son was the suffering servant spoken of and prophesied about in Isaiah. So what do we learn about the suffering servant from Isaiah 42? Well, there's three things that I want to mention here, and they all begin with M, a very preacherly thing to do. But I want us to see here something about his mission, his mercy, and the means by which he accomplishes his mission. So his mission in these verses tell us he is going to bring justice. That's why he came. In fact, that word justice shows up 3 times in the first 4 verses of Isaiah 42. And what it's really saying is his mission is to come and put everything that is wrong in this world right again. His mission is to come and heal the whole world and to heal us completely, to reconcile every broken relationship, to heal every wound, to bring perfect peace and joy and fullness and wholeness. In verse 7, it says that he has come to give sight to the blind and to set the prisoners free. And when you hear that, setting free the prisoners and giving sight to the blind, you begin thinking about Jesus and his miracles in the New Testament, recorded for us in the Gospels, how he came and he did literally give sight to the blind, and he made the deaf to hear and the lame to walk, and even raised the dead out of their tombs. And what that was a foretaste. That was a hint of what this suffering servant was doing. He was coming to put everything that was broken in this world right again. My favorite illustration of this, comes from the movie Slumdog Millionaire, a favorite movie of mine. And this movie follows these 2 characters, primarily Jamal and Latika. And They love one another. They grew up together, and as you follow their stories, they continue to get separated throughout the movie. And Jamal keeps seeking for Latika to find her and be reunited with her. But as you're watching their stories unfold, you see all of the hard things that they go through and the wounds and scars that it heaped up in their lives, living in such poverty and poor conditions and in terrible circumstances. Not just metaphorically either, quite literally. There's this point where Latika, someone cuts her with a knife, and there's a scar on her cheek, on her face, and when Jamal and Latika get reunited at the end of the movie, there's this scene where there's a close-up of Latika's face, and you can see this scar on her face. And in that close-up, Jamal, he presses his lips to that scar, and he kisses that scar. And the moment that he does, the whole movie begins playing in reverse. And I think it's the director signaling that the power of that kiss, that Jamal moved in close to kiss her wounds, her scars, and that it has the power to undo those scars and to rewrite her story and bring back peace and wholeness and fullness to her life. And this is what you see with Jesus in the Gospels. He came close. He came very close. He came right up to our brokenness and our wounds, all the effects of sin in this world and us. He came to heal and to make everything right. So that is his mission. But his mercy, to do this mission, you think this has got to take a powerful warrior like king to right every wrong and heal every bit of brokenness. And that is true. And yet this suffering servant song is putting before us the tension that we need to feel, that he is this powerful king, powerful enough to undo all the brokenness in the world and in our lives completely. And yet he does it so tenderly, so compassionately, so gently. A bruised reed he will not break, damaged and broken, but he'll bring that healing without completely breaking that reed, and it'll bear fruit again. A faintly burning wick he will not quench, and you picture a wick about to go out, the last flicker of flame upon it, and yet he's going to be so gentle that he will come and deal with that faintly burning wick without snuffing it out, and cause it to burn brightly again. And this suffering servant passage is telling us that the beneficiaries of the suffering servant's mercy are the broken, the hurt, the discouraged, the suffering, the confused, and the hopeless. Don't we need to hear this message today in this moment, with all the suffering in the world right now, even caused by this virus? And yet there's a day coming when he's going to heal every bit of brokenness, and there won't be any sickness anymore. There won't be any mourning anymore. There won't be any stay-at-home orders anymore. All the brokenness will be healed, and he will heal those who are most discouraged, most broken, most aware of their frailty, most aware of their sin and all the effects of their sin. And he's going to deal with them so gently and compassionately according to his mercy. But his means last. How is he going to do this? Well, once you get to the Gospels, you realize that this suffering servant is going to accomplish his mission, and he's going to accomplish it mercifully, because he's going to come and he is going to be broken in our place, and he is going to be snuffed out. His life will be snuffed out for us in our place. There's a story several years old, but it's from Kenya, and it was told by the Kahave Medical Center, which I guess I'm pronouncing that right. But there was a story of a little girl who was walking on the outskirts of her village in Kenya, and she fell into a pit. And when she fell into a pit, she broke her leg and was laying in the bottom of that pit. And as she was crying from the bottom of that pit, an older lady walked by and heard her cries and looked in the pit and saw her and saw the condition that she was in. But she also saw in the bottom of that pit was a black mamba snake. And I think I remember correctly, is one of the most venomous snakes in the world, if not the most venomous. It can kill a victim within 15 minutes of striking that victim. So the woman decided to jump down into the bottom of that pit, and she put herself between that injured, broken little girl and this black mamba snake. And as the story goes, that snake did in fact strike, but when it struck the woman instead of the little girl, the woman who stood in her place. And this woman did die. She took all the venom of that snake and that poison, and the little girl was eventually rescued from that pit. And the Gospels tell us that Jesus came, and he was broken for us. He was snuffed out for us. He stood in our place, and he took the poison for us so that we can now become and know that we are God's dearly loved children, to know that you are the son or the daughter that he dearly loves, his beloved son or daughter with whom he is well pleased. And that is how Jesus comes, to end the world of suffering, to end the world of its brokenness, and to put everything right. I hope this little devotion encourages you in your day, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Corey Pelton will put out a video on loving God and loving our neighbors during this time, and then Thursday I'll be with you again, and we'll pick up where we left off on our Thursday series, which is going to be a little devotion on the fruit of the Spirit. Hope you have a good day.